The rain that night wasn't dramatic. No thunder. No lightning. Just a cold, steady drizzle that soaked through my jacket and settled into my bones. The kind of rain that doesn't announce itself, but still ruins everything. I stood under a flickering streetlight on 9th Avenue, watching water pool around my worn sneakers, feeling like the city itself was slowly washing me away. That night would replay in my head for years. At the time, I didn't know it yet. All I knew was that my phone had stopped buzzing. No missed calls. No messages. Just silence, heavy and final. I stared at the screen anyway, hoping it would light up, hoping her name would appear like it always did. It didn't. I should have seen it coming. The signs had been stacking up for weeks' missed dinners. Shorter replies, the way she avoided eye contact when money came up. But denial has a way of protecting your heart until the damage is already done. I leaned against the brick wall outside the closed bodega and let my mind drift backward. 3 years earlier, this same street felt different, louder, warmer, alive. Back then, I was riding momentum. I had a steady job in logistics downtown, overtime hours whenever I wanted them, and plans that felt solid enough to touch. She came into my life during that stretch-bright smile, sharp wit, the kind of laugh that filled a room without trying. We met at a late-night diner, sharing pancakes at midnight because neither of us wanted the night to end. She liked hers drenched in maple syrup. I ordered black coffee and bacon, convinced I didn't need anything sweet. She told me she loved ambition, drive, stability. I believed I had all three. The city rewarded us for a while. Weekend brunches, movie nights, walks through busy streets where nobody felt alone. We talked about moving to a bigger place, about trips we'd take once things slowed down. I thought we were building something permanent. Then the warehouse downsized. It started quietly fewer shifts, tense meetings, supervisors avoiding eye contact. I told her it was temporary. I believed it. 2 months later, my badge stopped working. No drama, no warning, just a handshake in a cardboard box. I told myself I'd bounce back fast. Weeks passed. Then months. The city didn't wait for me. Bills stacked up like accusations. Rent notices slid under the door. I stopped ordering takeout and learned which grocery store sold the cheapest bread. She noticed everything. The canceled plans. The excuses. The way I counted dollars before offering to pay. At first she tried. I'll give her that. She said things like, "We'll figure it out, and this doesn't change how I feel." But her tone shifted. Hope turned into patience. Patience turned into distance. That night on 9th Avenue, I finally understood what distance really meant. She had asked to meet. Her voice on the phone was calm, to calm. The kind of calm that feels rehearsed. I showed up early, soaked, nervous, rehearsing speeches in my head. Promises, apologies. Optimism I didn't fully feel. She arrived dry, clean, put together. We didn't hug. She stood a few feet away. Arms folded, eyes scanning the street like she needed an exit plan. I remember noticing small things, the way her shoes were spotless, the faint smell of coffee, the absence of warmth in her voice. "I can't do this anymore," she said. No build-up. No soft landing. I tried to speak, but my words tripped over each other. I talked about interviews, about plans, about things that weren't real yet. She listened, nodding, but her eyes were already somewhere else. "I need security," she said quietly. "I need a life that's moving forward." I wanted to ask what we had been doing all this time. I wanted to remind her of every promise, every late-night talk, every moment we said we were a team. Instead, I stood there, rain dripping off my sleeves, feeling smaller with every second. When she walked away, she didn't look back. The streetlight flickered once more, then steadied. I stayed long after she disappeared into the city, holding on to a version of my life that no longer existed. Unaware that this wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of something far more painful and far more powerful. The apartment felt louder after she left, even though nothing made a sound. No music from her phone. No late-night TV murmuring in the background. No clink of forks against plates. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional siren outside, reminding me the city was still alive if I felt like I wasn't. Her side of the closet was empty within a week. She moved fast, efficient, like she'd already rehearsed, leaving in her head long before that night on 9th Avenue. I folded the last sweater she forgot, then stopped halfway, staring at it like it might explain something if I waited long enough. It did. Mornings became the hardest. Waking up with no messages, no shared plans, no reason to rush anywhere. I'd sit at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, counting the cracks in the wood like they were milestones. Some days, I didn't bother showering. Other days, I dressed like I still had somewhere important to go, to feel normal for a few minutes. I replayed the breakup constantly. Every word, every pause. I wondered if I could have said something different. If pride had stopped me from begging. If love should have made me try harder. Regret is loud when you're alone. It doesn't let you rest. Money tightened its grip fast. I sold things I once cared about. I watched my father gave me. Old vinyl records. A bike I promised myself I'd ride again someday. Each sale felt like shedding a layer of who I used to be. Survival stripped away sentiment. I picked up work wherever I could find it. Early mornings unloading trucks. Late nights cleaning office buildings that smelled like fresh coffee I couldn't afford. I learned the rhythm of exhaustion. Learned which streets felt safest at 2 a.m. Learned how invisible a man becomes when he stops succeeding. Friends faded. Not all at once. One by one. Some stopped calling. Others offered advice that felt more like judgment. You'll bounce back, they said, already halfway out the door. I didn't blame them. People like victories. Struggles make them uncomfortable. Every so often, my phone would buzz. My heart would jump. It was never her. I stopped checking after a while. Flashbacks crept in when I least expected them. Passing the diner where we first talked until closing. Seeing couples laugh over greasy plates and shared stories. I'd catch a glimpse of her smile in strangers and have to look away. There was one night. Months later, when I almost broke, I sat on the apartment floor, back against the couch, lights off, holding an eviction notice in my hands. The words blurred together. Past due. Final warning. Legal action. I laughed, quiet, hollow. Not because it was funny, but because something inside me refused to cry anymore. That was the moment. I considered calling her. I imagined her answering. Imagined explaining how bad things had gotten. Imagined the pity in her voice, or worse, the indifference. I pictured her new life, her new stability, her relief at not being tied to mine. I didn't call. Instead, I went for a walk. The city at night tells the truth. Neon signs buzzing. Takeout spots closing. Delivery drivers hustling. Everyone chasing something: money, love, meaning, survival. I realized I wasn't alone in my struggle. I'd just never noticed before. That night, something shifted. Not hope. Not yet, but resolve. I stopped waiting for things to improve and started doing whatever work was in front of me. I said yes to jobs I would have ignored before. I asked questions instead of pretending I knew everything. I learned skills I never thought I'd need. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt a routine. Weeks passed. Then months. The pain didn't disappear. It changed shape. It stopped screaming and started whispering. I carried it with me like a scar tender, but healing. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. Just a message. Hey, I heard you've been doing better. Thought I'd check in. I stared at it for a long time, my reflection faintly visible on the dark glass. My heart didn't race the way it used to. Instead, it sank with a strange mix of anger, curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite name. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because the truth about what happened next, the real truth, was still forming. And when it finally surfaced, it would change everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the cost of walking away at the wrong moment. I didn't answer her message. Not that day. Not the next. I let it sit there, unread, like a weight I refused to lift. Part of me wanted to respond with something sharp. Another part wanted to pretend I never saw it. Silence felt safer than reopening a wound. I just learned how to bandage. Life didn't suddenly improve because I ignored her. It stayed hard, relentless. Honest, I moved out before the eviction could turn ugly. Packed everything I owned into the trunk of a borrowed sedan and a couple of trash bags. I downsized my life without ceremony. No goodbye tour. No dramatic last look. Just a key left on the counter and a door that closed behind me with a final click. The new place was smaller, cheaper, and farther from everything. Thin walls, flickering lights, a view of another building's brick side. But it was mine, and for the first time in months, that felt like enough. Work became my anchor. I landed a temporary gig at a distribution hub on the edge of the city. Long shifts. Strict supervisors. Zero patience for mistakes. I kept my head down and my mouth shut. I watched how things ran. I learned the system. I volunteered for the late shifts nobody wanted. I became dependable in a place where dependability mattered. Nights were still lonely. I ate simple meals, grilled chicken, rice, eggs, cheap takeout when I felt reckless. I tracked every dollar. I slept hard from exhaustion, not peace. But something was happening beneath the surface. Momentum, slow, quiet, real. Flashbacks still came. I'd remember how she used to say she admired my work ethic. How she liked telling friends I was going places. The irony tasted bitter. I wondered if she still told that story or if I'd been edited out entirely. Months later, the temp job turned permanent. No celebration. Just a nod from a supervisor and a schedule pinned to a board. But I felt it in my chest, a solid, earned step forward. I started saving again. Not much enough. I upgraded my shoes. Fixed my car. Allowed myself coffee that wasn't from a gas station. That was when the rumors started. Not about me, about her. The city is small when you least want it to be. A mutual acquaintance mentioned her name casually one afternoon. Said she'd moved in with someone new. Said he had a place downtown. A good situation. I nodded like it didn't matter. It did. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how icily people replace entire chapters of their lives. I told myself not to care. I told myself I was past it. Lies sound convincing when you repeat them enough. Then something unexpected happened at work. A systems issue brought operations to a standstill. Orders backed up. Tensions flared. Supervisors argued. Everyone waited for someone else to fix it. I stepped in not because I was confident, but because I was tired of watching time bleed away. Offered a solution. Simple, efficient, and flashy. It worked. From that day on, I wasn't invisible anymore. Meetings followed. Responsibilities increased. I learned how leadership really works, not through titles, but through consistency. Through showing up early and leaving late, through staying calm when others panicked. My life didn't explode into success. It solidified. And that changed how I saw everything. One evening, months after her message, I finally opened it. Read it again. The words felt smaller now. Less powerful. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Eventually, I put the phone down. I didn't owe her access to the version of me she walked away from. That realization brought an unexpected calm. Then came the call, not from her, from an old friend who rarely called unless something was wrong or interesting. He hesitated before speaking, asked how I'd been, told me I looked different lately, stronger. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. You know why she really left, right? The question landed heavier than he intended. I told him I knew enough, that it didn't matter anymore. He went quiet. There's more to it, he said. A lot more. I felt that old ache stirred the one I thought I'd buried. Part of me wanted to shut it down. Another part needed to hear it, even if it hurt. he promised to explain. Not over the phone. In person, we set a time. When I hung up, the city outside my window looked the same as always. Cars passed. Lights blinked. People hurried somewhere else. But inside me, something shifted again. Because whatever truth was coming next had the power to reopen old wounds or finally close them for good, and I wasn't sure which. Scared me more. We met at a quiet bar just off the main avenue. The kind of place that smelled like fried food and old wood, where nobody rushed you out and nobody cared who you used to be. My friend was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer he hadn't touched much. His shoulders were tense. That alone told me this wasn't gossip meant for entertainment. We didn't waste time on small talk. He looked at me for a long moment. Out. Like he was deciding how much damage honesty might cause, then leaned forward. She didn't leave just because things were hard, he said. That was part of it. But it wasn't the whole story. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't interrupt. He told me that months before the breakup back, when I was still working overtime. Back when things looked stable, she'd reconnected with someone from her past. Not a childhood friend. Not an old coworker. Someone she once loved and never quite let go of. The timing mattered. This person reappeared when my life started to wobble, not collapse. When uncertainty first crept in, he had money. A polished life. The kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about rent. She didn't plan to leave you right away, my friend said. She waited, compared, weighed her options. Each word landed with surgical precision. He explained how she talked about needing clarity, how she framed it as self-growth, as protecting her future, how she told people she still cared about me, just not enough to stay. I listened, it's quiet, feeling a strange calm spread through me. Not relief. Understanding the betrayal wasn't sudden. It was strategic. I finished my drink slowly. Let the ice melt. Let the truth settle. On the walk home, the city felt different again. Sharper. More honest. I replayed moments I'd ignored, the sudden secrecy. The guarded phone screen. The way she'd pull away during conversations about money. The signs had been there. I'd just chosen hope over evidence. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I wasn't angry in the way I expected. I wasn't shaking or pacing. I felt something colder, heavier. A realization that the person I loved hadn't abandoned me in a storm she'd been looking for a lifeboat before the clouds even rolled in. Days passed. I didn't confront her. I didn't call or text. I focused on work, on routines, on moving forward without dragging the past behind me. But the truth had rewired something inside me. I stopped romanticizing what we'd had. I stopped blaming myself for her choice. Then she reached out again. This time, it wasn't casual. I've been thinking about us, she wrote. About everything. Maybe we should talk. I read the message once. Then again, the timing wasn't lost on me. By then, my life had visibly changed. I'd moved into a better place. I dressed differently. I carried myself differently. Word traveled fast. Stability has a way of announcing itself without words. We agreed to meet, not out of hope, but closure. She chose a cafe near downtown, bright and open, the kind of place people went to be seen. When she walked in, she smiled like she expected familiarity to do the heavy lifting. She commented on how good I looked, how strong I seemed. I listened. She talked about confusion, about pressure, about fear. She said leaving had been one of the hardest decisions of her life. She said she missed me. She didn't mention the other man. I didn't interrupt. I let her talk until her words ran out and silence settled between us. Then I spoke. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list facts like weapons. I simply told her what I knew. Not who told me. Just that I understood now. Her face changed. Not shock. Not denial. Resignation. She admitted it quietly. Said she hadn't meant for it to overlap. Said she never planned to hurt me. Said she did what she thought was best for herself. I nodded, and that's when something unexpected happened. I felt free, not vindicated, not superior, free. I told her I didn't hate her, that I wasn't angry anymore, but that the version of me she wanted now was built during the season she chose not to stay for. I stood up before she could respond, walking out. I realized the hardest part of betrayal isn't the loss, it's the clarity that follows. The understanding of who someone truly is when circumstances turn uncomfortable. Outside, the city moved like it always did. People chasing goals, making choices, leaving and staying. I walked home with a lighter step, because the story wasn't about her anymore. And the final chapter, the one that would define everything, was still ahead. Life has a strange sense of timing. Just when you stop craving validation, it starts showing up anyway. After that meeting at the cafe, something inside me settled. Not because I won or proved anything, but because I finally stopped measuring my worth through someone else's decisions. I focused forward, fully. No more mental rewinds. No more late-night what-ifs. Work accelerated. The distribution hub expanded. New contracts. New leadership gaps. I was asked to train new hires, then supervise a small team. Titles came slowly, but responsibility came fast. I learned how to manage people, how to listen, how to stay firm without becoming cold, how to lead without ego. Skills I'd never learned when life was easy. Money followed discipline. I paid off old debts. Built savings. Upgraded my apartment, again nothing flashy, just clean, bright, intentional. I cooked real meals now. Steak on weekends. Fresh vegetables. Coffee brewed at home while the city woke up outside my window. I started running in the mornings. Not for fitness at first, just to clear my head. The streets were quieter then. Honest. I liked watching the sun hit the buildings, reminding me that every day starts fresh whether you're ready or not. People noticed the change. Old friends reached out. New connections formed. Conversations felt lighter. I wasn't chasing approval anymore, and that shift changed how people responded to me. Confidence built slowly, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. And then, inevitably, she noticed too. Her messages became more frequent, less vague, more emotional. She asked questions about my life, about my work, about where I saw myself going. She talked about regret, about lessons learned, about how timing can ruin good things. I didn't engage much. Polite replies, short answers, not out of bitterness, but clarity. One night, months later, we ran into each other by chance. A crowded sidewalk near downtown. No planning, no warning. Just two paths crossing again. She looked surprised, nervous. We talked briefly. Small updates. Neutral ground. Then she said something that stopped me cold. I didn't think you'd end up like this, she said, this strong. She didn't mean it as an insult, but it was, in that moment. I understood something most people never admit out loud. Some love is conditional, even when it claims not to be. Some people believe in you only when the outcome feels safe. I told her I was grateful for everything we shared, that it helped shape me, that I wished her well. She asked if there was any chance, any possibility of starting over. I didn't answer right away. Flashbacks hit hard then. The rain, the streetlight, the silence, the months of uncertainty, the nights I wondered if I was the problem. The version of me who would have said yes just to feel chosen again, that version was gone. I told her the truth. Gently, honestly. No, I said. Not because I don't care, but because I care enough not to forget. She nodded, eyes glossy, understanding too late what loyalty really costs. We parted ways without drama, walking home. I realized success isn't loud revenge. It's quiet independence. It's building a life that doesn't collapse when someone exits the frame. But the real turning point, the one that tied everything together, was still ahead, because a few weeks later, I received an invitation I never expected. A leadership conference, industry-wide, a chance to speak about resilience, growth, and navigating career setbacks. They'd heard my story through work channels, thought it could help others. I almost said no. Then I remembered the night on Ninth Avenue. The version of me standing in the rain, believing abandonment meant failure, I accepted, standing on that stage weeks later. Lights warm against my face, I didn't mention her. I didn't need to. I talked about loss, about rebuilding, about how adversity reveals who stays and who leaves. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was genuine. And in that moment, I understood the final truth waiting at the end of this journey, the part that explains everything. The night I stood on stage, the city lights glowing faintly through the conference hall windows. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete ownership of my story. Not just the achievements, not just the survival, but the truth of everything that happened, the betrayal, the loss, the nights I thought I'd break. I could finally tell it all without shame or apology. After the talk, people came up to me. Some hugged me. Some shook my hand. Some said they were crying quietly in the audience, relating to the exact moments I had lived the sleepless nights, the uncertainty, the isolation that makes your chest feel like it's stuffed with stones. I realized then that what felt like personal humiliation had become universal value. And then I saw her not in the crowd, not even in the hallway. Just outside the building, the reflection of someone passing a car window. My heart didn't leap. My chest didn't tighten. I didn't run to her. I merely noticed a silent acknowledgement of the paths we'd chosen. She had left me at my lowest. But that low hadn't destroyed me. It had built me, layer by layer. Each hardship, each lonely night, each minor victory stacked, like bricks constructed a version of myself I never thought I could be. And that realization was the most satisfying truth of all. I thought back to that rainy night on Ninth Avenue, the way the city seemed to mock me with its indifferent silence. I remembered the helplessness, the aching emptiness, the thoughts that maybe love had limits I didn't understand. And then I compared it to my apartment, warm. My career, stable. My mind, sharp. My heart, unchained. I had climbed without anyone holding my hand, without anyone waiting to cheer or criticize. I had climbed for myself. Months passed, and I kept living deliberately. Work, yes. Friends, yes. But I also discovered quiet pleasures: Saturday morning farmers markets, old jazz records on vinyl, walks through parks where the city hum fades to green. I laughed more than I had in years, not because life was perfect, but because I finally realized perfection was never the goal. Growth was her presence in my past, became a lens, not a cage. I forgave her not in words, not by reaching out, but internally. Forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for me. To stop carrying her absence as a weight and start using it as fuel. Then, one evening, a mutual friend invited me to dinner. Casual city style, near the old diner where we had first met. I agreed, not knowing she would be there. And yes, she was. Clean-cut, polite, smiling. Same bright energy. Same confident stride. Same gaze that had once made my knees weak. But I wasn't the same man. The first few minutes were awkward. Nostalgia clashed with reality. I listened to her speak, the words flowing about her life career advancements, her new relationships, lessons learned. I nodded, polite, interested, detached. I realized I didn't need her approval anymore. Her admiration wasn't validation. Her presence wasn't a mirror for my worth. Finally, spoke. I've learned a lot since you left, I said, keeping my tone calm but steady. Mostly about resilience. About knowing who stays and who walks away. About what really matters. She looked at me, expecting regret, sadness, anger. I didn't give her any. I gave her clarity. I don't resent you, I continued. I just understand now. And I've built a life where your leaving isn't the center of the story. Her eyes softened. No defense. No excuses. Just recognition. And in that moment, the truth finally landed fully. She left me at my lowest. But in doing so, she unknowingly gave me the freedom to rise higher than I could have imagined. Freedom to define my worth. Freedom to rebuild without compromise. freedom to be unapologetically me. That night, the city hummed outside. Streetlights reflecting in wet streets, car engines droning. People chasing lives that would teach them lessons one way or another. And I felt gratitude. Not for what I had lost, but for what I had gained. Myself. I walked home alone, smiling quietly, savoring the feeling of being unshakable. And I truly knew that the lowest point in life doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. I had learned that lesson the hardest way possible. I had felt the sting of betrayal, the pain of abandonment, and the weight of doubt. But I had survived. I had thrived. And I had found peace. Some people leave for reasons we don't control. Some doors close when we least expect it. But those moments, raw and brutal as they are sometimes the very thing that opens the path to the life we were always capable of living. She left me at my lowest. And I found myself, and in that discovery, I finally realized that the most valuable love is the one we cultivate within, touchable by anyone else's choices.